Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Change your perspective, change your awareness, change your life. I'm Dr. Michelina, leadership consultant, specializing in mindset, identity, self-awareness, and communication. And so, in this series, we are talking about main character energy. We are talking about how your life as a human is not terribly different from like a book that you would read and a character's life as they progress through their journey. Right? And so what I want to talk about today and what I want to talk about over the next few segments is the stages of story development, because the stages of story development help the stages of character development. Okay, if you've ever read a book, watched a movie, listened to a podcast, you know nobody comes out fully developed. No character at the beginning of their story is the same character that they are at the end of the story. That is true of everybody. How you start off your life is not the same as how you end your life. And you are kind of changing in every season. And so every trial, every adversity, everything that you go through is a way in which your character can and should be developing. Now, nobody really teaches this, especially not like while you're going through it. And so what happens a lot of times is we take the adversity and instead of using it to change us in a positive direction, we internalize the trauma of it. And so we've got a lot of people who are walking around with trauma. So let's talk about the first part of story development and character development, which is called exposition. Okay, exposition in a story is just setting the scene. Okay, so we can take literally any conflict in your life, any traumatic moment, anything that has shame around it, anything that has guilt around it, anything that has fear around it, and set the stage. We can set the scene with what has happened there. Now, when you are the character in the story, it's really hard to analyze what goes on because you're living it, right? You're walking through it. A lot of the 0 to 14 years old trauma that we have, we're walking through. We can't analyze it until we get to be older. And then if you didn't watch yesterday, go back to yesterday. I gave an overview of main character energy yesterday. But what happens is when we come out into that second level, self as author, right? We have God as author, top level, self as author, middle level, self as character, bottom level. Too many people are going through life self as character, and they are the side character in their life. They're not in main character energy. Main character energy can come when you are both author and character in your life. That's how we get to main character energy, because I have designed this and I am living this out. Bang, alignment, path and purpose fulfilled. You really want to get into alignment? God's will, your story, all aligned. Really cool stuff. And I say this because I'm doing this. I've lived this, right? I can only teach you what I've lived. I can't teach you something I don't know. I was talking to someone today and they were talking to me about dreams. And I'm like, dreams are not my specialty, okay? Not my thing. Subconscious, not my thing. Mindset, consciousness, that's my thing, right? I have a friend who coaches emotional energetics. Not my thing. Not my thing, right? I'm all about existential analysis, right? So you got to know your strengths, and that's how you get into your path and your purpose is you know your strengths, right? So exposition, setting the scene. Now, I help people do this in one-on-one coaching. I help people do this through the school. The coaches that I partner with help people do this. But you can take any scene, any scenario of your life, and I suggest starting with the ones that pop up right away, because those are lodged in your brain, right? So if I ask you, what's a negative memory you've got? They'll come out. They exist. The negative ones are way louder than the positive ones. So for me, I'm just going to come up with a random one. I could take, when I was in first grade, don't ask me why, this just popped into my head, but sure, let's analyze this. Exposition, let's set the scene, right? I had these fruit snacks called Power Balls. My mom was always doing new products. So if there was a new product, we were trying it. And so I like opened it up, and I was what, 7? I was in first grade, and they scattered all over the ground. And the boy I liked, because I've always been attracted to boys. I'm hypersexual from like my youth. So the boy I liked, Mike, went and like picked them all up off the ground, and it made me feel really awkward. I don't know why, right? I have no idea why that's the case. Now, that's a scene I could set that I still remember, and obviously had me feeling some type of way as a 6 or 7-year-old. Exposition set the scene. Michelina as character still remembers this moment in time. Michelina as author needs to analyze why. What was going on there? By deconstructing all of these moments, and I would say you can use story development, I'm going to go through this over the next couple days, to deconstruct any scene and analyze it for what you could have learned from it, or should have learned from it, or this, that, or the other thing. I'm taking a relatively innocuous one, but I would suggest taking something that's more traumatic. I have worked through a lot of my traumas, so I don't, the awful things don't come up as readily because I've been working through them for 5 years. You know what I mean? Like so the first thing that comes to my mind is this like silly little moment as a 6-year-old. That's probably not true for you. I can't imagine you've done the same amount of self-work that I have, which is fine. It's no big deal. That's why you're here, right? I've fortunately done a lot of the character development already. Still doing it, still working, right? If your coach doesn't have a coach, you need a new coach. I always say that, okay? So I'm still getting coached. I still get therapy. I still get all the things because I think it's super important, and we're always growing and we're always progressing. If we're not always growing and progressing, we are stagnant. If we are stagnant, we are a side character. We are a non-player character, right? I think it was Ben Franklin who said, like, most people live to the age of 80 but die at the age of 30. Something, I'm misquoting that, but like, people stop growing. And it's like, why would you do that? Weird to me. Because they're so busy focusing on everything else. They stop developing themselves. Zero character development. Right, so exposition, right? Set the scene. You can analyze any scenario for good or for bad, right? For positive or negative in your life. If you have never done that ever with anything, so usually the first step is therapy to character development. I can imagine your character needs to be developed. If you've never gone back with a critical eye and analyzed what happened to you from 0 to 14, I already know you need character development. I'm sorry if that offends you. I don't want it to, but the science backs it up, okay? The science backs it up. So most of us are like 30, 40, 50 physically, and emotionally and mentally 14, 15. Being a kid is harder than it looks. So, when it comes to setting the stage, if you want to get in main character energy, you have got to go back and look at various points in your journey. You are not going to be able, nobody can, if you're off the path that you're supposed to be on, you're not going to be able to get on the correct path without looking back a little bit and like figuring out what got you off the path. You have to look back a little bit. We don't want to stay there. We never want to stay in our past histories, but we do need to look at it. And I always say this is the difference between coaching and therapy, right? Coaching, very present, looking to the future, checking back to the past. Therapy, very past-based. And we need both. You need both. I think you really do need both. Personally and professionally, right? So all that to say, first thing you want to do if you want to get into main character energy, you want to get your power back, you want to be the star of your show, you want to be the number one character in your story, is start checking into scenes that need to be set. I'm going to go through for the next 5 days and teach you how to do this, right? But what I would do if I were you right now, actionable steps, because you're going to find out I really like actionable steps. Go through and make a list of all the most traumatic things that have happened to you. When I fell off my bike in 2nd grade, when my dad left when I was 13, when I lost my virginity, when I... Okay? Because here's the fallacy of every human. They look back at their histories and they're like, nothing that bad happened to me. They trivialize their moments. And so I'll talk to people, my clients, my friends. When you're a psychotherapist, you just talk to everybody and everybody gets analyzed. I can't help it. I say all the time, like, hazard of hanging out with me is like, you're gonna learn some shit about yourself. Sorry, guys. But they're like, they don't realize how traumatic a thing was until I'm like, yeah, that's not. And that happened to me too, by the way. Okay. I was 2018 talking to my therapist. She wasn't the first therapist I had. I had my first therapist in 2015. Okay. So I've been going to therapy for 8 years. And yes, we still committed a crime. I've been a Christian for 35 years and still committed a crime, right? So there's always more character development to do, by the way. But, so I'm talking to this therapist. I'm like recounting this incident in my childhood where I got locked in the kitchen repeatedly. And she was like, that's traumatic for a child. And I was like, oh, I guess you're right. I still remember it. It's the first thing that came up. I guess it was traumatic. Oh yeah, I guess it did make me feel rejected and not good enough and like I don't belong and all these core wounds that I always struggle with, you know? I was like, oh yeah. And that is something that happens with every person ever. It's like, I guess that was a little traumatic. And so you are gonna want to set the scene. So pick a couple scenes. You got them. Everybody's got them. Yes, they are relevant. Yes, they are important. Yes, your trauma matters. Trauma being what you've internalized from your adversity, which happened outside of you. Everybody has to have adversity. Not everybody has to have trauma. Okay? Everybody has conflict. Adversity is just a fancy name for conflict. Everybody has conflict. Why? Conflict develops character. You're gonna get it. You're gonna have it. It need not necessarily be painful. It need not necessarily become trauma. For a lot of us who don't know how to handle adversity, it does. Which is why I'm always like, when I'm talking to my clients, it takes about 3 sessions, but we get there. I'm like, when you have a situation that's hard for you to handle, text me first. Let me help you through it. Why? Because then you're going to start handling situations differently. That's the whole point of a consultant or a life coach. That's the whole point, is that you can text them or talk to them in the moment and handle the situation differently. Now you've got a different perspective and you show up differently. Now, when you start showing up differently in your life, guess what? Your life changes. So all this day, I don't want to get too far ahead. If you want to be in main character energy, and why wouldn't you, right? Set some scenes. What are some of the hard things that happened to you? And yes, they are hard. If they're coming to your remembrance, they were hard. So jot them down, okay? Jot them down. Set the stage. You don't need to do anything more than that. Sometimes if you're working through your own stuff, right? You're like, I'm not really ready to go to therapy. I'm not really ready to go to coaching. I'm not really ready to invest my money in anything right now. Hey, that's fine. This is free, right? And you're investing your time. To me, time is always more important than money. Always. You're giving me your time. Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm giving you my time. I don't get paid for this, you know? This isn't my main job right now. So when you're handling things on your own, sometimes you can only look at it so much by yourself, because if you're looking at it, you'll drown in it. You'll drown in the emotions of the thing. So all I want you to do is the best of your ability. Jot down the things, the scenes that were hard for you. If you're a little more advanced, you've already worked on some of this in therapy, you've already been there, done that a little bit, you can start digging into, okay, well, how did that make me feel? What did I experience? What could I have learned from that I didn't learn from that at the time, right? And when you start doing that, you're coming out of just side character, right? You're coming into main character. And then as you're analyzing it, analysis brings you in higher, right? Change your perspective, change your awareness, change your life. How do you do that? Analysis. That's what you do. You analyze the thing. And so you analyze it with the truth. You don't analyze it with the false misconceptions, pseudo values, etc., etc., etc. You analyze it for what it is, which is why you have to come up into the next level, self as author, right? So hopefully that makes sense to you. Hopefully that's not too heavy. Trying to make this very palatable. I think this series is probably one of the more concrete series I'm doing. A lot of what I do and have done in the past is very like conceptual, like get aware, you know. This one's a little bit more tangible. It's a little bit more concrete. This is actually a little bit more what I actually coach people how to do. And I just kind of felt like this was the way to go in this moment. So yes, if this is all resonating, love that. Hit the like, comment below, subscribe, tell your friends. If this is helpful to you, keep tuning in. I'm going to talk about main character energy for the next, little bit. I'm excited about it, love it, big fan. And if you are interested in coaching of a sort, click the link below for the school and or reach out to me, DM, TikTok, message. You can comment below here too. I'm just, that's less one-on-one personal. That's more like a forum. People can see it, up to you. And yeah, we will talk about main character energy. This is my favorite thing to talk about. This is what I do. This is like the bread and butter of my work. And so, big fan of sharing it with you. And so, if you are a big fan, then I will see you here again tomorrow.